Hi, once again. So this is our last and concluding session for today, but not for the entire conference, since we have 4 days ahead. And our concluding session for now is CBDCs, past, present, and the future. So we all know that there is so much happening in our day-to-day life about implementation of different types of CBDCs and lots of news about it. From all over the globe, and I think that would be very good point now in June 2024 to make a kind of review about the past, about what's happening, and to make a to have a look on the future together with our next guest, Sasha Pitkevich, who is a blockchain and Web3 expert and one of the drivers of this conference and of this community as well. Hi, Sasha. How are you?
Hi, Alik. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much for
Alik,
joining today.
can you hear?
And yes, I think we have some ping and some lags before between us, but I hope that will be all right. So thank you so much for being with us today. I hope that we'll have a productive session. I would like to remind all of our audience to leave your questions in the live chats wherever you are watching this, and we will go through the questions at the end. And I think that we can now see your presentation, Sasha. The floor is yours. Please, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here and also on the first day. And guys, the topic is, from one point of view, is well known. From another point of view, it's so controversial. So I really would like to hear your questions at the end of the session. So while I will be speaking, please don't be lazy. Ask the questions, and we will have hopefully a good discussion at the end. So, central bank digital currencies. Well, we started to talk about that probably earlier than the cryptocurrency topic has existed. The desire to have proper digital money, that's what existed a while ago. Because it started to be. And so far, all the types of the digital money we have before cryptocurrencies, they were records about the money. And yeah, but one second. Let's stop. Like, I'm Sasha Pitkevich, and I need to basically first let you know why I'm speaking about that. Actually, I today opened a conference, and I opened it in person. But the original plan was that it would be recording because I was on a business trip actually implementing central bank digital currency for one of the countries and discussing with them the use cases and architectures, how it should look like. And that's not the first time I'm discussing this topic. I've been discussing that with the several governances and several organizations in the world, and also with the technologies. So that's already for about 5 years. I'm here and there participating in the central bank digital currency implementation, pilots, projects, point of use, researches, proof of concepts. So, yes, I do have a hands-on experience. And yes, probably while some people are telling me start from the beginning, because we might have people who are not really professional on a topic. And despite the fact that our conference is blockchain professionals conference, we always have people who are professionals in other area of the crypto, of blockchain, or Web3, so do not know much about what is central bank digital currencies. So starting from the very beginning, I already announced that the topic is kind of controversial, but what it is, every country has money. And every country has a tendency, well, most of the countries have a tendency to issue its own money. And there's organization, a country which called normally central bank, bank of something, or national monetary authority, something like this. And that's an organization who manages those money. And there are a lot of uh, what points, a lot of ways how the money is managed, and that's obviously done in the interest of the governments. And there are quite some of the efforts to maintain the national money. And as I already started to say, there's always a desire to manage it much more effectively and to have that more robust, more flexible. And there were a lot of attempts. And those attempts have existed before the cryptocurrencies existed. And we all know electronic money. And we all know that electronic money, it's not the money itself, that's records about money movements. And that's existed order for ages. All the solutions, all the IT systems we used so far for all the source of the money, they were solutions which are recording money movements. And there are accounting rules, and according to those accounting rules, those IT systems were created to basically well, facilitate the double recording, eliminate double spend, and there are a lot of wisdom. All the payment systems, all the record, and everything now is about electronic records. Until the last 5 years, where the countries have started to experiment with the real digital money, cryptocurrencies. And that's not necessarily the cryptocurrencies we used to look at, the publicly arranged. Basically, when cryptocurrency is issued by the nation or by the national monetary authority, that's appeared central bank digital currency. Like we have the digital currency, which is cryptocurrency, and issued by the national money authority, by the central bank. And there are, as a professionals, you know that there are a lot of ways to issue cryptocurrency. There are a lot of ways to manage that, and there are a lot of countries with the different needs to do so. And well, in a majority, what we can see that there are a lot of benefits for every nation, for every country, to operate the digital currency, for true digital currency, because first of all, that's easy. And that's liquid from the day of the issuance. And that allows financial inclusion. That lets people who were previously unbanked to easy access to the banking. And it allows a lot of flexibility. So-called those programmable money, when you have the real money, like in software system, not the recordings about the money movements, but the real money being transferred within one transaction and really being transferred, and the real money who reside in the customer wallet or a certain account, then within a smart contract or within the on-chain code, because a smart contract is not supported in every technology, but with the help of the on-chain code, you can give those digital money certain qualities, certain abilities. You can program that, and there are a lot of appetite because where the money of the country, and there are a lot of ideas of the divisioning the money for the specific needs, for the specific purposes, behaving specifically because of the time range, because of the duration. There are a lot of ways how governments wants to operate their money. And the digital aspect of that, true digital aspect, give this ability to the country. At the same time, as I already said, topic is quite controversial. First of all the associations with all sort of the cryptocurrencies, they create quite some of the resistance because of the some history, because of their some misunderstanding, because of the decentralized systems and decentralized aspects, and this atomarity of the money transfer. It's difficult to understand and difficult to manage because also the new ways to manage. And obviously, a lot of concerns of the technological stability. And with people who understand that right, a lot of concerns on privacy. Because when the money are issued on a decentralized ledger, everyone who has an access to the ledger can see all the money movements. From the management point of view, that's ideal. That's what all the organizations wants to have. And that's what all organizations want to see. From the end user point of view, in some countries, that's sometimes perceived not ideal. In some cases, and we are not discussing the legality of those cases because basically, I would say there are a good portion of those cases considered to be illegal, but they still exist. And they still exist to the wide range. So in some countries, there is a desire of the government to make that transparent. and at the same time desire of the end users, and those both are the private and the business use, not to keep that so transparent, like still proceed with the gray area which existed for ages. So despite the fact that there are a lot of benefits, there are quite some of the concerns, and also implementation and need in every country that varies. And in some countries, and that's typically third world countries, there is a great interest to put unbanked people in a banking system, which which beneficial for all organizations of running that, and is also beneficial for the people itself. In some countries, there is a great desire for the transparency because the current situation left to that being transparent. In some countries, there is a desire of the payment variety. And that's probably because they're heavily dependent on the current payment systems where the fees are high. And the countries want to make it lower, and not having the national payment system to basically relying on an international one brings, for example, the merchant prices quite high. And if the national currency is not that high on a market, that makes very complex to use the international like payment systems for the merchants for the small payments. In some countries where the bank system, where the payment system is pretty well established, there might be desire for the new cases, for the new businesses, for the new ideas of how to process payments, new sort of the payments, or the new sources, I said, the programmable money, and new ways to use the money in the country. So going through all that variety, we are looking to the current situation. And basically, the current situation is that almost every country in the world is already playing with the some sort of the uh, digital national money, central bank digital currencies. But let's first look at what nations need to do to launch a central bank digital currency. Is it a technical question? I'm afraid not. Because there are a lot of technologies, and I will show you an overview of the current POCs being used. I will tell you where you can get this information and where you can subscribe on this information and how you can regularly update yourself if you are the professional in any area. But basically, I'm afraid that the technology now is much smaller burden than a process. Because try to imagine how much needs to be changed, or how big needs to be changed in a nation when you will, for example, attempt the launch of the worldwide or countrywide digital currency. First of all, there needs to be the client applications, and they needs to be accepted by the generic public. And if the country is statutory and bank, that needs to be light, easy to use. And if we are thinking about the like expansion for the whole nation, well, the usability comes to the great importance. And basically, I must say that the majority of the tools currently at the market who are operating securely the cryptocurrency, when I'm speaking about the wallets, well, they just last 2 years started to be more or less user friendly. They just last 2 years, thanks to MPC wallets and thanks to the biometry, started to be uh, easy to operate for the people who are not from the crypto world. And if the technology for the central bank digital currency is used from the traditional crypto world technology, the implementer will meet the same issue. Wallet. Wallet needs to be a good wallet. And then the wallet needs to have a different types, because the wallet for the generic public, for retail customer, is one wallet. But the wallet for the business is another wallet. It basically represents the types of the accounts. And I must say that there are not that many business wallets at the market right now. That's definitely the area where crypto community needs to grow, where the technology needs to The technology itself is here, but the usability, but the creation of the final product needs to improve. And we are looking just to the top of the iceberg, like basically to the responding side, to the presentation side. But then all the administration applications, all the administration interfaces, all this maintainability, supportability, resilience, we all know that the decentralized technology is pretty resilient. But at the same time, we know that it's quite an effort and there are no best practices, and everyone is developing that on how to maintain the network. Basically, you are relying on a network to be maintained by itself. And if it's countrywide, and if a central bank, for example, and not that many central banks really want to maintain all the nodes, not at all. Basically, when we are speaking about the decentralization, I'm pretty sure that while most of the countries would like the national currency to be centrally managed, the technical side, they want to be decentralized. And either that's the nodes to be given to the commercial banks and to the special operator organizations, either that's even wider. And basically, the decentralization of the technology, it comes first, and that's the first appetite and the most logical thing. And basically, professionalism here is still lacking. Is still that's a piece of craft. Also, there are quite some of the organizations and now big organizations like AWS, like Microsoft. There are small organizations like Kaleda offering you blockchain as a service, but that's still abstract. Blockchain means technology as a service. We can maintain, for example, Ethereum client for you, or Hyperledger client for you, or we can maintain the node for you. But for the sake of the working as a national currency node, it has to have the set of the smart contract, set of the code, a lot of things are the mid-layer things on top of the basic technology, which needs to be installed and maintained. And on top of that, those parts and also underlying part needs to be regularly updated. And maintainers needs to do so. And we all know how it's done for public blockchain, and we all know how much pain initially that was to keep everything stable and to keep everything robust enough. And we all know that the blockchains who managed to do that well, they're top blockchains right now, because you cannot afford this mistake. The same way you cannot afford this mistake on a national level, which means that you have to develop those features right on a national level. And that's not a technical setup. Okay, probably 20-30% is a technical setup, which can be easily provisioned for you by the classical cloud something. They all now know technology more or less. In some cases, it can be hardware, because we already know like the countrywide blockchain solutions, which maintained by the hardware, which supported by hardware on a basic level. It's also possible, but still it requires the proper procedures, a proper support. And still, there are not that many vendors, and in majority of the cases, the stable and good technologies we can rely upon, they're community-led technologies. And you can already find parties who can do some support, some hosting, and those are commercial bodies and commercial entities. But still, there are a lot of experimentation, because I would say the industrialization of those solutions is still not at the stage you can base the national currency on that. And on top of that, introduction of the new ways to deal with the national money will require quite some of the decisions. And it will start with the quite some of understanding how within a country we are going to maintain that. It's starting from who will maintain the accounts. Is it the national bank who wants to maintain all the country accounts? For some smaller countries, it's probably possible. For bigger countries, I don't see the possibility, because, yeah, It's still support, it's still the creation, it's still the onboarding and all of that. But what to do with the business accounts? Or probably it depends on the size of the business account or the type of the business. If the government of this national bank wants to do that, all those decisions, and that's the top of the iceberg. It's just the creation of the accounts. Then how the money are initially created and produced, minted. Majority of the technologies offer holder of the network or certain body of the network to mint the money. Minted money needs to be distributed to the accounts of the holders. How this process is being done, how it's being monitored, how it's being controlled. And then reporting. You all know that the majority of the technical vendors, they can provide you with a solution, but the creation of the proper reporting costs a lot of efforts. And the country gradually moving to the new source of the money needs to respect accounting rules. Probably they needs to be changed, but in this case, they needs to be changed, tested, reporting needs to be done. Probably they need to stay intact. Then the new IT systems needs to be programmed accordingly, and again tested, and again reporting. All of this creates a lot of work where you set up the procedures, where you test the procedures, where you adapt the procedures, where you support those procedures. And all this is new work. And all of that requires the professionalism and understanding of what's going to happen and understanding of the technology, how it's going to work. And there are that not that much professionalism in the world because there are not that much experience. There are only 4 countries running central bank digital currency on a national level. And those are very small countries. And those are the like third world countries. And that's why they are running because they didn't have the complex procedures. They didn't have the complex needs because yeah, that's a handful of the accounts at the end. But think about the big country of size of Canada, US, Russia, China, Europe. That's huge. And the change associated is huge. There like the necessity are years to think about those procedures. And that's what we can see currently in the market. We can see for every country that they announced that they started to work with the central bank digital currencies. And they announced like some countries start with the technology and technology pilot a POC. Some countries start with the procedures. Some countries start with the maintenance change and basically planning of how it's going to be done. And all of this you can see on CBDC tracker, and that's online. It's not run by me or any of my colleagues, and that's an attempt. I wouldn't say that the quality of the data is there perfect. Basically, working on several projects, which I mentioned there, I know the current status is slightly different. But at the same time, guys are trying hard, and the results are not bad to understand what's going on. And it gives you information about the state per country. And it also gives you information about what technology is used and what technology partner is involved. And those are the different things. Because, for example, the EVM based solution can be delivered by different organizations, the same with Hyperledger. Slightly different with Corda and Ripple, but all those technologies are technologies on which the nation can bank its national currency, can base this national currency. And as we can see that there are a lot of countries who are doing proof of concepts. There are a lot of countries who are already in a pilot. And a pilot means the technology together with the procedures. It means that they are trying to feel what would be the impact on a country as a whole, in which aspects, because basically even creating the procedures, you cannot predict what is the coverage area. You like moving from the centralized technology to the decentralized technology and doing the adjustments in the management level. In some countries, you probably would like to introduce some degree of the decentralization of the management. In some countries, I mean, countries in the world where the even money issuance are delegated to the commercial banks. And there are countries where no, like on the national monetary authority can issue the money. And all of this, like each country has to make clear the way forward. And there are political questions, there are economical questions, and there are a lot of, it's not only nationwide. There is there are also relations between national bank and the commercial banks. And basically, the change of the approach towards national currency is shaking or shaping those relations within country national money system and how it's supported and uh, what obligations do commercial banks have towards national money authority, what rights they have. This all can be reviewed and redesigned. And can you imagine how many parties needs to be involved in this process? And they have they have different interests. And all of this needs to be discussed structurally. Again, among the parties who are doing that first time, probably in their life. And there are not that many experience. I mean, I doubt that any really big country, like I'm sure they all would like to the like to, they all would look to the experience of Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Jamaica, and Bahamas, where that's life. If they're able to take much from that experience towards management of national currency in Canada or in Australia or in Argentina or Brazil, I don't know. Doesn't look that straightforward because also every country thinks that they're different. And indeed, there are a lot of different needs. So you first discuss your requirements and how you want it to be. Then you discuss how it needs to be shaped. Then you take zillion of the decisions how exactly it needs to be. And then you're proving that as a concept, and that's in the majority technology concept. I mean, you are able to do the national payments, or what are the main functions of your money in a country. And the very interesting thing, because all of you now like listening what's going on, thinking, okay, all those countries are playing, and one day they will go live. What will happen with the cross national payments? What will happen with all the possibilities to convert all those sorts of the digital money? I mean, we have constantly a lot of questions. Why, guys, you need so many cryptocurrencies? And with the introduction of the national money, we will have much more cryptocurrencies. And yes, while we are speaking now about the traditional money, we can look at the past and the history of how long did it take to establish all these cross country, cross national payments and how complex the infrastructure are. That's actually the motivation for majority of the countries to have digital money to make it cheaper, to make it faster, to make it much more efficient because the current system and the current payment systems are also evolving and they're also uh, modifying themselves to accept the cryptocurrency payments, modifying themselves to uh, basically to deal with the various new sorts of the exchanges, centralized crypto exchanges, decentralized crypto exchanges. So the whole world evolves. And the change we are witnessing right now is huge. And what we are trying to predict the speed. And we must say that with the current, for the last 5 years, there were central bank digital currencies who started and who announced that even earlier. But I must say that the majority of the work was done last 5 years, also with the maturity of the cryptocurrencies. And and there are still countries who are not basing their technology on well-established cryptocurrencies. And we know that the China does a pretty successful pilot right now, and they're using Dash protocol, and that's not something which widely used somewhere else. And there are a lot of attempts in other countries, and you can, well, for those who are really interested, you can go to the website of the European Commission and watch all the materials of the digital euro. There are a lot of movements recently. And then on both sides, on the procedure side, there are a lot of discussions of how digital euro is going to function. And there are also the decentralized European ecosystem technically. And there's a sandbox already. So all of this is like gradually moving, and that's the current state. And well, I promised you to mention what are the technologies. And here I deliberately didn't put the numbers, and I didn't order that because it's difficult to compare. How we are going to compare per number of countries using this technology, or per number of citizens in this country, or per complexity of the bank system in a particular country? So very difficult. I think it's just wise to look that a variety, well, despite the fact that variety exists, that's not everything we could imagine. Dashing protocol, China, Ethereum, EVM, some countries, quite some countries. There's also, if we will use the BC tracker, Quorum is also EVM based, yes. And when it says like where the technology provider Kaleda, it's in the majority also EVM based solutions. There are quite some attempts to use different versions of the Hyperledger. And we all know that none of the Hyperledger versions covers all the needs. So in a majority, while doing certain proof of concepts, those countries will gradually adopt more and more, I would say, incarnations of Hyperledger, because they will need also to facilitate the national security and the national IDs or some sort of the IDs to accessing the currency, and then the transactions of the currencies. So basically, different aspects of the Hyperledger ecosystem would be used. Also, when you are using the CBDC tracker, that's normally one of the Hyperledger technologies is mentioned there. Also, Ripple now is playing on a field of central bank digital currencies, and I might say that one of the implementations I'm doing together with Ripple, and they do have the nice solution which covers the issuance of the central bank money, and also they do have interface to manage that on the side of the central bank. And they are promising to come up this or next month with the operator interface, where that's more for the commercial banks, and they do have some sort of the wallet, not ideal one, but basically they are they're a good player in ecosystem. And basically while they're doing that, they're offering already like solution with some sort of the interfaces which can definitely be used for the proof of concept, or for example pilot, and connections to XRP network, where we can see a lot of banks already. So they are offering at the same time the solution for interoperability, on existing banking system, where we look into the Ethereum based solutions, you will get like naturally interoperability to the majority of the cryptocurrencies and DeFi solutions. Again, choosing the technology, what is more important for your country. Corda solutions, they also exist, and there are also countries who are experimenting with Corda. Surprisingly, there are also countries, and I think it's one or two, experimenting with Stellar. It's not that popular, but still exists, and I was glad to see that it was mentioned. It's also tells us that there might be countries experimenting, for example, with Cardano or with some other ones. Like Cardano is non UTXO one, so like Bitcoin, and can bring quite some of the interesting features, I would say, to the national currency. It's also possible. But that's what you can see currently. And I must say that when we're speaking about the accuracy of the data in CBDC tracker, there the most inaccuracy happens. Probably like absence of the latest updates, and also technology and technology provider. They're changing rapidly. They're changing rapidly. And as I already said many, many times in various cases, the main quality of the blockchain solution right now, or DLT based solution right now, is flexibility. Normally, you are like looking to the years or ages of being used. You are not banking on a single technology. You are creating solution which can easily move from one technology to another. And you are actually designing together with the whole solution, the aspects of how you're going to do the move, how you're going to support the fact that you probably will need to migrate to another technology, to another middleware. And we are slowly moving, well, probably lost sight about the current state. Let's look to the variety of the requirements, or I would say variety of the benefits which different players will gain from this nationwide digital currency. And as I already said, it's very, very beneficial for every government of very monetary authority. Get rid of the hassle of all those reserves being stored and managed. Get rid of the hassle of like managing liquidity, managing onboarding, uh, basically free up the capital, have the auditability, have one network for the whole country, have the transparency, being able to base statistics over the transactional information across the whole country. Well, it can change the ways government manages the money or gets the answers about the budgets being spent tremendously. The same for commercial banks. Commercial banks, for them, that's controversial, and I will speak about that in the next slide, because basically they need to find their new role in a whole ecosystem. Are they going to maintain the nodes and to serve as the validators in a network? They're going to discuss that together with the monetary authority of their country. What would be their responsibilities in their network? What they will see on this network? What they would be able to do there? But in the majority of the countries, commercial banks are still going to maintain the user accounts, which means that it opens a haven for them to develop user applications, to offer totally new services, and basically all the blockchain solutions, the solutions between the businesses that gives commercial banks possibility to integrate with everything, to integrate with the e-commerce solutions, to integrate with insurance, to integrate with retail, to issue a lot of loyalty products. Basically, there are no limits. They can program money. They maintain the account. They can be flexible in their solutions because the majority of them appear to be decentralized applications sitting on top of the stack, on top of quite stable stack, which means that they can basically produce a lot of service applications partnering with the different type of organizations across the country. And again, the presence of the information and access to the network, if visibility allows, brings them the necessary statistics. And again, the services based on these statistics and adaptive service and the usage of the AI of analyzing information and creatively offering the services to their customers. Basically, that's the absolutely new level of customer facing services. And the commercial banks having a desire can lead that. When we're speaking about acquiring, about merchants and e-commerce, for them, in a majority, that means lower prices per transactions, possibilities to easily integrate payment mechanisms, micropayments, and enablement of crypto on a nationwide level, and also extra security for the payments for their customers. Not much, but a big money. And recently, I heard in a country where I'm implementing something about the digital currency, that it's probably the one of the main motivators to lower the prices for the merchants, to lower the fees. And that's being outlooked as one of the key factors for the successful adoption. And look into the private users. Okay, first of all, that's access for the unbanked people. I guess the majority who are listening right now, and when you are looking to the situation from the private point of view, you are probably banked. So for you, that's not much. But lower transaction cost, variety of the payments, I would say mobile payments, more control if you want that. and access to the crypto instruments. And with that, I'm moving to the next slide, which will show you the problems, disadvantages, or concerns by the same four categories. And here we are looking uh, to the dark side of that. And well, I ended for the benefits with the private users, and I must say that I didn't. Well, probably it feels that I didn't mention that many benefits for the private users. Uh, there are a lot of concerns on the private user side, and that's mainly about the transparency, traceability, and responsibility, which lays on your shoulders. First of all, it means that in the majority of cases of the CBDC implementation, that all the transactions would be visible and all will come into the statistics. Uh, in private sector, there are a lot of desires or something to escape taxes. That won't be possible when everything is transparent and auditable. But at the same time, no taxing mistakes, no no motivation on a corporate level to have the gray salaries or all of this. Basically, everything comes under ultimate control. And yes, private user appear to be the player in all of this. And there are a lot of responsibilities of managing your own money, or if you are delegating that right. That exists now to the same extent. It's just when the country digitalization, the presence of those nationwide digital money will bring clarity to that. Will like it would be not really possible, or possible but with the great effort to close your eyes and to refuse of doing so. Currently, it's much easier. I don't understand all those financial infrastructure. I do not like why I get my salary, I spend my salary. What happens until I'm terribly worried, I'm not looking to that. It would be difficult to see that when everything appeared to be very transparent. As also, I'm pretty sure that there would be a lot of authorities from the business side and on administration, on the country administration, on the public services side, motivating people to be more responsible for all those money flows. And actually, that's a good thing. But at the same time, it scares a lot of people. It's much easier to go to the shop and to choose between two varieties of yogurt and not out of 100. For many people, that's not that they easy can manage. So I believe that from the private point of view, from the private account holder point of view, all those concerns about privacy, greater control, a lot of choices is kind of clear. Uh, for merchants, probably the negative side or concerns are necessity to monitor the change. Basically, when everything would be done well, that's already kind of good and the concerns will disappear. But we all know that it's not even 10 years where all the changes will go. And alongside the change, they will need to monitor the changes in the accounting system, the changes in the legal system, and adapt, constantly adapt. Those are investments. Those are the burden, and those creates resistance because it works, don't touch. The same for commercial banks. They now have pretty established positions in the country and pretty established ways of working. With the move to the national digital currency, it may be shaped, and it will require quite some of the thinking and quite of some changes. Exciting, can open a lot of new businesses, new ways to earn the money. At the same time, tiring, worrying, and creating a lot of issues on the way, requiring a lot of efforts, and also increasing competition. Together with the new unbanked people, it may bring to the ecosystem the smaller banks, the smaller, operator organizations, the smaller service providers to the equation. And the commercial banks will need to rethink and relook to that. And speaking about the monetary authority, I mean, you all can digest of how big is a change to introduce a new ways to operate money in a country. And there are all the policies, procedures, legal and tax implementation, like implications, and also making the change positive, advertising that, making that a society, positive society change, not having those groups previously mentioned resistant. A lot of work with the commercial banks infrastructure, of setting up the new logic, then a lot of work or delegating this work and managing the work with the merchants, e-commerce, and the private owners. And still on the government shoulders, there would be change with the private owners. I think we need to move to the questions and just one word about the future. We've been focusing a lot about the current state. We've been focusing a lot about the size of the change which is expected and which is being approached by, I would say, majority countries of the world. The next step here would be interoperability. Fortunately, all the existing payment system offer us those services. Unfortunately, the desire is to see the cheaper ways and to see the cheaper ways to make the national money interoperable and probably extend that and have that more flexible. And that's what, like, when the current change of establishing and distributing money within a country would be digested a little bit, and it will come very soon. And for many countries, that's it's already there. The question about cross-country interoperability will arise, and I'm sure there would be a lot of ways to approach that. And next year or year after next year, we will speak about this. Currently, on this conference, we are speaking about interoperability of blockchain systems or crypto systems. I'm sure that next year we will speak about interoperability between national currencies. And Alec, I know that I'm probably massively out of time, but luckily I'm the last one, and I was asking to be the last one. Do we have questions?
Yes, of course. Just a second. Let me quickly bring up the live chat for a second. I have seen a couple of questions, and the first question says, "What do you think about CBDC coloring when government wants to restrict spending money on certain goods or services?"
Well, there is a possibility to implement that. I must say there, well, that's a sort of the programmable money. That's the function of the money which government, if they want that, can implement that. And if the question is asked from the private account holder point of view, means that you are scared that it will happen, or from a business point of view, private business point of view, that's the question of choosing the right government or letting know the government about this. And that's what I've been speaking about, this situation where the new processes and new ways of working needs to be established. Technically, yes, that's possible, not that very complex. If there are those requirements on a particular countryside, I don't know. And that's a political question. It's mostly a political question. And here it's probably like, again, if you're approaching that from the private point of view, that's probably one of the points when you're participating in elections or where you're speaking, when you're participating in the country in national politics.
Okay, and I
Alec,
think I
that's the one.
also can have a short comment about it. So, there is some kind of populism around this topic, and lots of some kind of skepticism about the. So lots of people on the internet, on Twitter, they express some kind of skepticism about implementing CBDCs. Even we all remember the news from Trump, who also said something about the CBDCs, that he never gonna implement that, and that's very dangerous. And so what are the main some kind of populist barriers and pitfalls that are kind of uh, hindering the implementation of CBDCs?
I would say that there is no main one because the countries are so different, the approach is so different. But I must say that the maintaining positive side or the positive uh, view on a change is the very complex one. And that's definitely lays on the shoulders on all of the governments because basically they need to advertise that in a country. It needs to be accepted countrywide and adapted. It can be easily done with the force. At the same time, I told you there are a lot of reservations from the businesses and from the private owners on like they will see everything and they will maintain us unfairly. But look into that, guys. I mean, there is nothing bad to be transparent. There is nothing bad to have all information or to be able to m- to to make management decisions based on a right and correct information. No, not at all. Majority of the fears which are being discussed, they are based on what if the mechanism of the total or better control will uh, would be managed unfairly, would be given for the party who will use that improperly. And that's the hugest problem, Alec. I probably will say that to answer your question is this fact. A mechanism can be developed. And the mechanism can be very good, very strong, very transparent, very stable, very resilient. Uh, but it lays a lot of moral obligations for the for the parties who are using the mechanism. And this clarity, fairness, stability, this trust needs to be built. And that's outside of the technology field completely.
Okay, so we have a couple of more questions. So Daniel Simpson says, "Hi Sasha, do you think CBDCs will work in a more developed and strong economies like Europe, or does it provide more value for developing or not so strong economies?"
Well, this provides a lot of value for both types of the economies. And I was elaborating during my pitch about what we can see that the developing countries, they look for the unbanked people for more variety of the payments possibilities of enabling smaller merchants, individual merchants with the ability to accept money, to transfer money, to do all of this. So there are a lot of benefits for developing countries there, and they lay in the area of making that possible, making the various types of the money operations possible. Looking to better developed countries, they more looking to the better transparency, predictability, and basically making better business decisions. And also, like you mentioned, euro. That's a very good question because the euro is this euro space. There are many countries underneath the euro. Here, there are a lot of additional challenges of maintaining euro as a currency, having different countries with the different needs underneath. Here, for example, coin coloring can help having the same like type or other mechanisms. So it basically the approach into making money truly digital with all these benefits, it's provide benefits for all sorts of the players. It's just they have different requirements and their solutions would be different.
Okay. And the last question is, do you think CBDCs will become a competitor to a country's traditional private banks if the population uses that instead of their own bank account?
That's difficult to understand the question. There are different models of implementing central bank digital currency. When we are saying central bank and national currency, we normally referring to the fact that the national money would be issued, minted by the national money authority. It seems to be that the question is formulated like it's possible to establish nationwide money by the ecosystem of the country commercial banks. Nothing can stop commercial banks to get together and say, okay, we are issuing, I mean, yen, dollar, something digital, where that's not an initiative of the country money authority, but where that's pure initiative of the commercial banks. If they will manage to get that legally, and if it doesn't go aside or if it doesn't break their current legal relations with the national bank, technically it's possible. And again, I could imagine that in some countries that's possible also in a national level being accepted. For example, in Hong Kong, the money are made by commercial banks. It's like not the national bank prints the money, but the commercial banks in Hong Kong print the money, and they have those rights for many, many, many years. They used to do that. So basically, it's quite logical that they will issue like the network, and they will proceed with that, having the national money. And in this case, it will be maintained not centrally by the national money authority, by those commercial banks. It can be like this. If it will be like this, still, when we're speaking about the national money, everything lays in a legality and a government policies. So it needs to be agreed. Also, again, I will constantly in all the questions answer technically, everything is possible. The limitations are not on a technical side. They are on a political, probably emotional, probably society side to be accepted. And they change, and that's basically the logic. It gives the reason why we are waiting so long for that when the technology is ready. For majority of the decentralized solutions, their adoption means not a technical excellence. That means procedural change, which is much longer than technology change. So I hope I answered the question. It's difficult to understand because, as I said, basically, by definition, central bank digital currency is a currency issued by central bank. But I just try to elaborate of what it can be. And when we are speaking about like national-wide currency, not approved by national bank, but issued by the consortium of the commercial banks, that's also possible. And then, well, technically, using public technologies where they can dictate the rules to the government too. They can be disruptive too, because like yeah, you cannot stop the Ethereum network, you cannot stop Bitcoin network, even if you will issue legal documents. So still would be like well, the people who do not agree or parties who do not agree will still be able to maintain that. It can happen with the banks too.
Okay, yeah, and I see we have a new question. I think we can quickly answer that too. So it says, "What do you think about the possibility of using these central banks as means of control, where it may not be beneficial for the user and go against the ownership of money?"
Well, question is, what if the national bank of the country doesn't act in the interest of population of this country? Very difficult to answer this question because yes, that happens. And yes, technically that's possible. We know politically it's also possible. While there's somebody asking what if, I'm saying yeah, then the money holders will suffer. Also, business holders can suffer too, because how like blocking the particular user account, block particular business account, making irrelevant pressure politically to this. Yes, that's much greater control. There's always, like, auditability and traceability brings also the possibilities to control. That's obvious for everyone. As I already started answering the question of that, choose the right government. That's the only way. Because nothing can stop the change. It can delay procedure wise, but there are so like the whole meaning of my pitch today is it's unstoppable. Technology is here. Everyone understands the benefits. Everyone actually understands that it can be the measure of the control. The mechanism is totally here. The ways we implement that will define everything. And every country decides that on its own way. I mean, there are ecosystems of the countries like Euro, they also decided on a way, but collectively. At the same time, the nature of the technology allows the participant to hijack. I gave the example of the ecosystem of the commercial banks. It would be unstoppable. Blockchain technology by design is unstoppable. So, very relevant
Okay.
question. Unfortunately, there is no answer, and that's not because of my knowledge. It's just there is no answer on that. Yes, it's possible to get it under the total control.
I think
That's the
we can discuss
improvement
it
of the current
forever.
control mechanisms. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, thank you for providing your answers and for your presentation. Yeah, thanks. We've got the last slot for you so that we could run out of time, but that wasn't a problem for us. Thank you so much for making it so productive. And I think that's it for now. Thank you, Sasha, once again. And before we say goodbye to everyone, I'd like to remind that it's only the first day of our conference, and we have 4 days ahead. And each day is dedicated to a different topic. And today it was all about the Future and Trends Day. And tomorrow we will be having a handful of speakers about the topic of adoption. And we have very different speakers from across different industries and across different continents too. And please stay tuned, join tomorrow at the same time. And we will be having even a couple of workshops for those who are interested. And during our workshops, you will be able to even interact with your voice. We would provide you with certain formats for that. I think that's it for now. Yeah, if you have any further questions, join the Telegram link that I provided in the comments section in our YouTube's live chat and on We Are community. Let me know if you'll have any questions or feedbacks or comments. See you tomorrow.